Each one of you, especially those that are here in Auburn State Theater, to the Evening of Song and Story. And I also wanted to say a warm hello and welcome to each person that's joining us via the live stream this evening on Facebook and YouTube. Even though you're physically distanced from us, we feel that you're socially with us, and we hope that each one of our audiences enjoy the program this evening. My name is Ethan Bird, and I'm a volunteer board member of Beautiful Minds Wellness. And on behalf of Dr. and Mrs. Binus and the entire Beautiful Minds Wellness and Beautiful Minds Medical team, I want to say we are so honored and privileged to have each one of you here in person with us this evening and through the live stream broadcast. For those of us that are here in Auburn, I wanted to point out a couple of our safety features on this venue. First of all, we have the emergency exit over to your front left, and we also have high-fiber, healthy snacks out in the foyer. I want to compliment you on being very disciplined in physical distancing here in our venue here in Auburn. And then at the end of the program, I want to encourage you to just remain seated, and the ushers will dismiss you by row. So if you were to choose a theme song that would typify or personify your experience of 2020, what would that theme song be? I took a few minutes to look online at the Quarantune's top countdown, and they were titles like Gotta Be Patient, 6 Feet Apart, Back to Basics, Let Your Love Be Shown. And I was talking to one of my friends, and he said, I've been singing a lot less of Shall We Gather at the River, and I've been humming a lot more of I Come to the Garden Alone. So this year has been one for the record books. I was checking recently in the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's quarterly called the Mortality and Morbidity Weekly Report, and it reported on a survey that was done on 5,000 respondents. And the respondents were asked about their experience during COVID and whether or not they had been personally impacted in their mental well-being because of COVID and because of the prevention measures that have been taken through quarantining and through social distancing. And as it turned out, 40% of the respondents said that, yes, they were impacted in more than one way. 30% said that they were experiencing anxiety or depression symptoms. 26.3% said that they were experiencing trauma and stressor disorder. 10.7% said that they had been considering suicide over the last 30 days. And among that group, there were subpopulations such as those that were unpaid caregivers, those that were in minority populations, and youth and young adults aged to 24 that rose to 25 to 30% said that they had been considering the idea of suicide over the last 30 days. So it's in this type of darkness and sense of social disconnection and grief and loss that I think that Beautiful Minds Medical and Beautiful Minds Wellness shines all the more intensely. I would like to thank several people as we begin our program this evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. and Mrs. Binus for their untiring efforts and investment, as well as the entire Beautiful Minds Wellness team and Beautiful Minds Medical team. And to just say that I think that there has never been a time where you stand at the intersection of despair and hope, and that your untiring efforts are going to yield rich dividends in senses of connection and senses of love that have come to your patients and your clients. Secondly, I want to thank so much Pam and Joe and Tanner for being willing to step into the limelight. It is bright up here, guys. I can't really see any of you. But I want to say thank you to Pam and Joe and Tanner for being willing to step into this light and share courageously about their personal experiences and victories over mental illness and their journey toward mental well-being. Lastly, I would like to thank God who walks with us in our stories and who is the author of our songs. And I would like to ask each one of you to sit back, silence your cell phones, and enjoy the sense that you are beloved and that you are connected. Thank you for coming tonight.
Good evening. I'm Pammy Williams. I don't respond well to Pamela because that usually means I'm in trouble. And my story is titled Rescued. Since the age of 4, I knew my survival and the survival of my siblings depended on me. I have 12 siblings. I'm the oldest of my mother's children and the third in line of my father's children. I grew up in a home with my mother's 6 children. At age 4, I became the babysitter for my 2-year-old sister and infant brother whenever my mother left to go to the store or the local bar around the corner. My father left my life at age 6. He was volatile and violent. He regularly beat my mother and threatened our lives. Soon after my mother's divorce, she remarried a man who had nothing but disdain for her 3 children. He was physically, emotionally, and sexually abusive to us. Both parents were alcoholics and narcissists. My stepfather promised my mother he would never hit her, but that did not stop him from taking a baseball bat to our home. Our house was full of horrors and sorrow. On the outside, we looked normal, but the unimaginable took place inside. I was made to do the cleaning, cooking, and childcare. My mother spent most of her day in bed behind her locked door. We were not allowed to question anything. Insubordination meant you would get a slap in the face, the silent treatment, or it would land you outside for the evening sleeping on the cold cement porch. I was frequently beat along with my brother. As a result, I suffer from depression, with PTSD and anxiety. I also have ADHD. At age 20, I was hospitalized the first time for severe depression. I did not sleep for a week and became catatonic after a suicide of a friend. 7 more hospitalizations would follow over the years for depression, thoughts of suicide, and stockpiling pills, but I never made a suicide attempt. I was prescribed many rounds of psych meds. Sometimes as many as 5 were on board at one time, and I was misdiagnosed several times. Not until recently was I properly diagnosed. 12 years ago, my GP diagnosed me with anemia, and I was put on monthly IV iron treatments. 10 years ago, I was prescribed 2 different psych meds that really made a difference. My GP and I started hiking weekly from the Forest Hill Bridge down the canyon and back for 5 miles. We became very good friends. With the psych meds and iron treatments, I was stable for 8 years, but began to have some neurological problems. I saw a neurologist who diagnosed Parkinson's syndrome, tardive dyskinesia, and dystonia, problems caused from the psych meds, which I had to stop taking. I was allergic to antipsychotics, and anti-seizure meds reacted the same way. In 2018, my GP was fired from her practice at a time when I was starting to experience disturbing symptoms: insomnia, headaches, dizziness, itching, abdominal pain, and nausea. I was desperate to find another GP and figure out what was wrong, and also resume my iron treatments. The first new GP I saw did not address my symptoms, but did check my iron and ferritin levels. Ferritin is a protein that stores iron. I was told my ferritin was too high to resume iron treatments. The doctor also wanted to remove a much-needed portacath, and I never went back to see that doctor. Dr. 2 started to treat my symptoms individually and also checked my iron and ferritin levels. He said my levels were too high again. My symptoms began to worsen. After a visit with that GP, I went home and Googled ferritin because I didn't know what it was. I had every symptom of iron poisoning related to elevated ferritin. The next day, I called my GP to see him immediately. I asked what my ferritin level was. It was nearly 3,000, and normal is between 50 and 200. I asked him why that wasn't a concern to him and why he didn't connect the dots between high ferritin and my symptoms. I then asked for a referral to a hematology oncologist I had researched the night before. I never returned to that doctor either. 4 days later, I saw the hematology oncologist. He had pulled my records from the previous 10 years and was surprised I was still living. He discovered that my iron and ferritin had not been monitored in 4 years. And when my levels were finally monitored, my ferritin was in the thousands and iron treatments should have ceased. My GP and friend had been slowly killing me. The oncologist and I came up with a plan to do weekly phlebotomy, removing 500 mils of blood, a fifth of my supply weekly. That required 2 visits a week to do lab work one day and phlebotomy the next. This continued for a year and a half. After the phlebotomy occurred only when my ferritin was over 250. My internal organs and bone marrow were saturated with iron. That cannot be undone and will eventually cause disease and organ failure. I sought 2 other opinions, one from a local hematology oncologist and one from Stanford. I was told to go home and wait to die. After my diagnosis of iron poisoning, I began to slip into a worsening depression. A perfect storm was brewing. I isolated and stopped attending church. I was very sick. On October 12th of 2016, my mother, who I had been caring for 6 years, passed away. I discovered 2 sisters had stolen all my mother's money and decided, along with another sister, to file a lawsuit against them, causing great emotional stress and anxiety. Then I needed some help with something very important and could not get help, even from anyone, including my oldest daughter, who chastised me for even asking her. I was seeking help and no one was listening. I now formulated a plan to end my life. I was going to go out on my terms and not wait for God's timing. I started stockpiling sleep meds and painkillers. I had 100 but wanted more medications. I went to my psychiatrist and begged for more psych meds, stating I was desperate and depressed. I secured a prescription for 120 Lamictal. The following day, I saw my psychologist and explained how I had saved all the pills and Googled the best time to jump off the Forest Hill Bridge. He laughed at me and said I couldn't jump off the bridge because they had extended the height by 6 feet. I was crying out for help and again being dismissed. That night, I got out all my pills. I took anti-nausea medication to avoid vomiting up all the pills and then took them, except for the Lamictal. I wrote notes to everyone I loved. In the morning, I woke up astonished I wasn't dead. Frustrated, I swallowed the Lamictal. That put into motion hours of hallucinating. I destroyed my apartment and did significant damage to my body. I had open, gaping wounds, some as big as 7 by 3 inches. I was missing skin on my elbows, knees, chin, and face. I was black and blue everywhere, including a black eye. The worst bruising was on my chest and neck. I had neck bruising from ear to ear, a result from trying to hang myself. I was rescued after police broke into my apartment through an open window. They were alerted by a neighbor who heard me scream and called 911. For 3 days, I laid in the ER without any help. I had a DNR on file, and they thought I was going to die. After those 3 days, they had to rethink that and come up with a plan. I needed to be transferred to a psych hospital, but I required medical treatment and daily wound care. So I was transported to a hospital in the Bay Area where they had a psych ward. I could not walk or speak without a stutter. I could not bathe myself, dress myself, or feed myself. My right arm had sustained some painful nerve damage, and my intestines had quit working. After 3 weeks, I was set free, but I was very angry at God. I had worked hard to end my life and wanted to be dead. I was now worse off than before due to the overdose and/or oxygen deprivation. It seemed like cruel and unusual punishment. I still had ongoing suicide ideation. When I returned to Beautiful Minds, I was granted the freedom to openly discuss my desire to die. Though my therapist felt I should be hospitalized, he listened to me and realized further hospitalization would only make me more determined to end my life. I had the space to be real and work through my anger at God. That was a true blessing, and I knew my therapy team was praying for me. My psychologist allowed me the same space. It took 4 months for me to lay down my anger at God. I returned to church. I started implementing healthy principles into my daily life. I went back to my vegan roots, began walking 4 miles a day on the trails next to my home. I learned breathing techniques to help me with anxiety, and I worked very hard in therapy. After many months of speech therapy, God took away my stutter. A 1.5 years later, my intestines were healed just before I required a colostomy. I am an unmedicated person with depression, PTSD, anxiety, and ADHD, along with iron altering my brain chemistry, a double whammy. Yet I am in the best place emotionally and spiritually that I've ever been before. God is the hero in my story. Without him, I would not be here. He has granted me 2 more years of life since my death sentence diagnosis. I don't live like I'm dying. I live like a grounded person in God's word. God rescued me out of the deepest darkness I had ever known. I am not my mental illness. I am a child of God, fully loved. I will continue living in his light until God calls me home.
Good evening. My name is Mike Peterson. This is my son, Isaac Peterson. We're honored to be here tonight. We're here for the second time, and we really enjoy playing music together. It's a great privilege to play music with my son. He's a great musician, and you'll see he doesn't use music, and I have to use music. Maybe it's just because I'm older, but I've never really been able to do that. But the song we're going to do tonight, though, is a song that brings back a lot of memories. For me, it's a song that my wife and I used to sing together. But when we had kids, it became more of like somewhat of a lullaby to our kids, because the author of the song, he's desperate to show love to his children, and it's kind of a poem in a way, and so. I just urge you to listen to these lyrics, and we hope you enjoy it. I'll walk in the rain by your side, and I'll cling to the warmth of your hand, and I'll do anything to help you understand. I love you more than anybody can. And the wind will whisper your name to me. Little birds will sing along in time. The leaves will bow down when you walk by, and morning bells will chime. I'll be there when you're feeling down, to kiss away the tears if you cry. I'll share with you all the happiness I found, a reflection of the love in your eyes. And I'll sing you the song of the rainbow, the whisper of the joy that is mine. The leaves will bow down when you walk by, and morning bells will chime. And the wind will whisper your name to me. Little birds will sing along in time. The leaves will bow down when you walk by, and morning bells will chime. And morning bells will chime.
You might be surprised at some of the prescriptions that I give people that I work with. But what I've realized in mental health treatment is that those things that truly address the underlying causes for mental illness are those that also get people truly well. And some of those will include nutritional recommendations, exercise recommendations, and even connection recommendations. In other words, connecting with other people, connecting spiritually. And what we find, if we address people's issues from the root cause, they get truly well and experience wholeness like they never imagined possible. One of the things you can do right now to jumpstart your mental health is start getting aerobic exercise. And one of the best ways you can do that is by getting out into nature. Studies show that it's not just the amount of exercise we get, but it's how we exercise that makes a big difference. So by getting out into nature and exercising at the same time, you're going to get a double benefit for your mental health. One of the most important things that we can do to improve our mental health is starting to change the way that we eat. And there are many things about food that can optimize our mental health. The basic and most important principle that we want to think about when it comes to optimizing mental health is try to eat as much of a plant-based, whole food diet as possible. One of the things that people often try to do is to make all the changes all at one time. But what I found in working with people is take one small step at a time, and then you're going to be more likely to stick with that change and to continue it over time. You can do it. And we are here to help support you through this process.
Thank you for coming out tonight. I attended the 2017 Song and Story Night, and at the time I didn't feel like I would ever get to share my story at this capacity, so it's an honor to be able to speak here tonight, so thank you. I was born here in Auburn, but after my parents divorced when I was 5, I spent most of my years in Oregon. I've dealt with depression and anxiety for my entire life. As a child, I remember constantly having nightmares. I would have night terrors where I would crawl around in circles on my bed screaming for my parents, oblivious to the fact that they were right there trying to help me. I remember telling my mom before school that I always had this feeling that something was going to go wrong for no reason. And these anxieties got worse as I got older. I did my best to manage, but I still had to take medication throughout most of high school. And the list of medication kept growing until 2017, and that's where my story begins. At the time, I had a car, a girlfriend, 2 jobs. I was sharing an apartment and managing a really complex social and family life, and I think that I was doing a pretty good job of it. On the surface level, looking in, it definitely seemed like I was happy. But in reality, I was having multiple panic attacks a day, suffering from night terrors, still and insomnia. It got so bad, I was averaging only 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, if I managed to sleep at all. I was paranoid, depressed, and anxious all of the time, but I hid it well because at the time, I felt like I had to. The people speaking into my life told me that I needed to be strong and keep going, and I thought that that meant pushing my emotions away and doing my best to pretend that things were okay. At one point, I was on 7 different medications to try to manage all of the emotional distress that I was feeling, but those had their own side effects, and slowly the truth started to seep through, and my life started to fall apart at the seams. My car broke down, a very close relative was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I got kicked out of my apartment by my roommates because the severity of my panic attacks started to scare them. And then in November of 2017, almost 3 years to the day, I woke up in a hospital bed with no idea how I had got there, and the worst headache of my life. I learned later that I had been missing for 12 hours. My girlfriend finally found me after calling all of the emergency rooms in a 50-mile radius. The hospital said that a group of homeless people who said that they were friends had dropped me off. I had had a seizure, hit my head, and that there was bleeding on my brain. I have no memory of the time I was gone. The last thing that I remember is taking one of my sleep aids in the wee hours of the morning and falling asleep. I woke up several times in the ER, but it all seemed like a dream until I finally started to stay conscious and record memories again. My head hurt more than anything I could describe. There was an insanely loud, high-pitched ringing and waves of nausea, but thankfully the bleeding stopped and I would be okay. I lost my driver's license as a result of the seizure. I lost my jobs because I didn't have reliable transportation, and I lost my sense of smell and my sense of taste when I hit my head. All of this piled up onto the other issues was just too much, and my life was falling apart and something broke. I became very angry, more angry than I've ever been in my entire life. I've been told that this is very common with head injuries, but it doesn't make it any less strange to experience. I felt like I had absolutely no control. I was horribly toxic and volatile to the people who love me. I was staying at my parents' at the time, and in order to keep staying there, they wanted me to get help. My parents found the Beautiful Minds IOP program and asked me to attend, and the night before I was supposed to, I got into an argument with them, and they kicked me out in the rain in the middle of winter with no car and nowhere to go. I had no more hope. I felt like all of the people who said that they loved me in my life had lied. I felt like I didn't know myself and I was a stranger in my own skin and in my own life. I felt completely alone and without purpose. I eventually walked over to the area near Beautiful Minds and found a bus stop with coverage so I could get out of the rain, and I stayed there for the night, freezing cold, uncomfortable, and alone. The next morning, I joined Beautiful Minds' intensive outpatient program. My anger continued for the first few days of the IOP, and I'll be honest, I was a real jerk to a lot of people who, in their heart of hearts, were just trying to help me. Their persistent respect for me and my situation, as well as their willingness to deal with me when I was in such an erratic state, started to wear me down. I had a little bit of an aha moment, and I was suddenly cognizant of how much of a jerk I was being, and I was incredibly embarrassed and humbled. And thankful that God had worked through these people to show me that all hope is not lost. At a time when my life felt further away from God than I ever have before, here was a group of people praying for my progress, helping me despite the fact that I wasn't openly and outwardly a Christian, loving me and pushing me to do better despite how difficult I was being. And I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and gratitude, as if God himself was putting his hand on my shoulder just to tell me that everything was going to be okay. I slowly started trying to make changes. I tried to respond instead of react. I began listening to Dr. Binus, Amanda, Gary, and Mariola, and honestly, I could really stand up here and name off most of the staff there because they all helped me. I wanted to keep their impact fresh in my mind so I wouldn't forget. After working with the program, after graduating the IOP program, I continued to work with Dr. Binus. We were able to reduce my medicines down to 2. I no longer have daily panic attacks. I've taken control over my anxiety and gotten a handle on my depression. In a relatively short amount of time, I was able to get back on my feet. I started working again, moved into an apartment with my amazing girlfriend Hannah and our emotional support cat Princess. And I was able to get my license and save enough to buy my dream car. Thanks to the other programs like the Lifestyles group and the coaching program offered at Beautiful Minds, I'm now taking the first steps towards a career in life coaching so that I can help people the way that the Beautiful Minds family helped me. They placed a hand on my shoulder when I was at my lowest low. They helped me open my eyes to see the abundance and unconditional love that God has for every one of us. They helped save my life, and I couldn't be more thankful. Thank you.
If you see the world today, you can see a lot of people are crumbling.
There is a disaster unfolding in California across several regions of that state.
What a catastrophic emergency nobody has experienced before.
One of the things that we realize is that mental health problems are on the rise, and especially in today's climate where the stress levels are unprecedented, we need very holistic interventions and we need them quickly.
I always had a heavy suicide ideation. It just wouldn't go away. So I'm wearing that mask, and every day I'm just saying, hey God, you know, if you're not going to help me, then just, I don't want to be here.
It seemed like I had nowhere to be and no reason to get out of bed.
I decided I'm going to go to work and I'm going to prove myself. And that's when I crashed.
Mental illness can happen to anyone. It's all around us. Sometimes you can tell, and sometimes it's totally invisible.
We started Beautiful Minds about 10 years ago because there was a huge need for mental health services in this area. As we grew and we were able to hire therapists and other prescribers, we were able to have more of a team approach. But even that wasn't able to fully address all of the challenges that we were seeing with our patients. And so we actually developed Beautiful Minds Wellness, which is the nonprofit branch of Beautiful Minds. And this is really the organization that helps to spearhead the community mental health education, prevention, and again, really trying to focus deeply into those root causes for mental illness so that we can help people realize their full potential for healing.
The need for mental health in this area is actually a lot more than I ever sensed it would be.
As a person who comes from urban areas, there was never, no offense with the county, because I live in Sacramento County, but it just wasn't enough. It was so sterile. When I met Dr. Binus, I remember him telling me he wanted to build a facility.
I'm sitting in a place that is under construction, and I'm excited because truly this is a dream come true.
This wellness center will actually give us a home that we can invite people to. We can have workshops for our community where we can provide holistic services like
massages, which, I mean, our staff really is excited about.
It's going to be hydrotherapy, which we call water shock therapy, the hot and cold. And there's going to be an expansion of our life and health coaching program.
A place where people can come and feel supported.
And all these modalities are going to work together to really help people to address those root causes for their mental health problems and achieve their best mental health. We need your help to complete this project. We have a budget of $120,000, but we really want to do this in a way that doesn't add a huge debt load or burden to the organization. And at the same time, we're stepping out in faith, realizing that this is a need in the unprecedented time that we're living.
It's really exciting to have this possibility for the community here in Auburn.
I'm actually kind of in shock, you know. I'm not in a bad way, but it's like, this is great.
I've been seeing Dr. Binus for so many years, and we were just thrilled to hear that this was occurring now and that this would be available to people to help them the way it's helped me.
If you want to see the world around you change, this is something that's absolutely necessary, and it covers all the bases. You're not just covering people's mental well-being. We deal with the physical well-being too. We deal with the spiritual well-being.
For this doctor to get this call and this mission to expound on his practice, it's going to be huge.
Good evening. My name is Shama Stock, and I'm so grateful to work with this amazing team of caring and professional people. We love being a part of this Beautiful Minds community. Our passion is transforming lives, one beautiful mind at a time. Whoops, I am going too fast here. As you just saw, we are in the remodel phase of our pilot wellness center. This center will help us expand our wellness services while we continue to pursue our plans for building a large mental health and wellness campus here in Auburn, California. So what's the benefit of adding services like hydrotherapy and massage? These are all part of a whole person care approach, and each piece is important. So hydrotherapy, it may decrease depression, anxiety, inflammation. A recent study showed that hydrotherapy was more effective in lowering anxiety scores than the medication Paxil. Massages. As an additional therapy to traditional treatment, massage can reduce symptoms of depression, anxiety, and lower stress hormones, among other benefits. And also, we're going to have now a space to call our own for community workshops. Over the past 4 years, since Beautiful Minds Wellness, the nonprofit, started, we've been begging and borrowing and moving from place to place for our community workshops. And so we're super excited that we can have a place to invite people to, that they can feel a part of this community. And we're also going to be having a treatment room available for a local chiropractor to provide some chiropractic services. Beautiful Minds believes in providing a wide spectrum of services that range from intensive treatment for those in crisis to raising awareness through education and supporting people to reach their optimal health and wellness. This partnership between Beautiful Minds Medical and Beautiful Minds Wellness provides this spectrum of services. And this allows people to move from revive to survive to thrive. So for just a few moments, I'd like to share how we've been supporting people in 2020 through Beautiful Minds Wellness. We've been providing community workshops. I'm not going to read all the titles because of time, but on many different topics: mental health first aid, healthy attachments, plant-based cooking. We've had 110 people come to our in-person workshops, and then COVID hit, and we had to take a little detour. So we began putting our workshops online and having webinars. And we were actually able to have many, many more people attend. I know there's people watching from all over the country and even in other parts of the world. And we've had many webinars on many mental health and wellness topics, from music and the mind to nutrition, exercise, and sleep, and on grief, and many topics. We've had 882 people join our webinars, either live or on the replay. We also continue in partnership with Beautiful Minds Medical to provide sponsorships and financial assistance for intensive outpatient care. And you've heard the story tonight of how that's benefiting people, and we've helped 23 people with financial assistance. We've also now have an online classroom, and you can take various courses in holistic mental health. We've had over 173 people sign up for these courses. We have Love and Boundaries, long-term risks of psychiatric medications, spirituality and mental health. And coming soon, we have a new course coming out, Ancient Secrets of Mental Health. And also, we're very excited in 2021 to launch 2 podcasts. One will be The Brain People, a mental health Q&A podcast where anybody can call in or email and leave their questions about any mental health topic. And we will have Beautiful Minds providers answering those questions. And then The World Inside, where we highlight people's stories, much like you've heard tonight. At this time, I'd like to invite someone to the stage that is in the business of building hope. He has been an inspiration and source of healing for many people in this community and beyond. And he's going to share some exciting progress in our vision. Please help me welcome Dr. Daniel Binus.
Oh, thank you. Well, good evening. I'm so excited to be here. This is truly one of my most favorite events and evenings of the year. It's so wonderful to hear these stories of hope and healing, isn't it? I mean, especially when you've been part of that journey and you look back and you've known some of these people when you first met them, and then you watch them on stage and you say, wow, this is truly a miracle. And anyone that doesn't believe that miracles still happen, please come to our office. We will show you living examples, living miracles that we get to see every day. And you can only imagine that I often feel like I have the best job in the world. And, you know, I often feel like, wow, I'm really not working. I'm just having an amazing time. And yes, there are nights where I come home and I'm a little tired and worn out, but it's a good tired because it's been such a blessing to spend time with the wonderful people that are being transformed and watching God's hand at work. You know, the conversation about mental health has never been so important as now. Would you agree with that? Think about what's happened here in this last year. 1 year ago, could you have imagined the things that we have experienced here over the last several months? It's amazing how quickly things can change, isn't it? It helps us to realize that our world can be turned upside down overnight. We're seeing the statistics of mental health this year really being affected in a huge way. I'm just going to see. Let me take this mic out so I can actually read this. All right. So USA Today reports that the coronavirus pandemic is having a significant impact on Americans' mental health. The CDC found elevated levels of anxiety and depressive disorders, substance abuse, and suicidal ideation among U.S. adults. According to the CDC survey, 41% of Americans, almost half, said they were suffering from one or more symptoms of serious mental health problems. Almost 11%, over 1 in 10, said they had seriously considered suicide in the last month, including, listen to this, more than a quarter of those between the ages of 18 and 24 years old. More than 25%, more than 1 in 4 of that 18 to 24-year-old age group has seriously considered suicide in the last month. Why do you think that is? It's because we're not just living in a time of a pandemic, but we are living in a time of an epidemic of isolation and hopelessness that people are struggling with. And our youth are especially being impacted because they're looking at the future and they're saying, what do I have to look forward to? Is this all there is? Here in Placer County, we're not an exception. This was actually the headline in the Auburn Journal here this last Sunday. Suicides outnumbered COVID-19 deaths in Placer County well into September. And the title of the article is, "Why is no one talking about this? Why is nobody talking about this?" But I'm glad that tonight we get to talk about this. And we get to talk about not just the problem, but we get to talk about what? Solutions. And that's especially exciting, isn't it? From March 1 through September 18, there were 39 deaths related to COVID-19 in Placer County. In that same period, there were 44 suicides. Before a recent surge that saw COVID-19 deaths increase in the county, suicides outpaced COVID-19 deaths by about 10%, according to data provided by the Auburn Police Department. It's affecting all age groups, including the elderly. Why is nobody talking about this? Loneliness has been on the rise. Even last year, before COVID, look at these statistics. Share of Americans who reported feeling lonely in 2019, females 58%, males 63%, Generation Z, which is 18 to 22-year-olds, 79%, millennials 71%. So this gives you an idea, feeling lonely, feeling isolated, even before COVID. So no wonder once COVID hits, people are feeling like they're being pushed over the edge. And this just gives you an idea. I know it's not very clear, but this shows that most people are feeling significantly more lonely because of the pandemic, especially, again, the Generation Zs and the millennials are feeling especially more lonely because of the pandemic. I like this quote from Viktor Frankl. that says between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. You know, oftentimes we think that we are a product of what is going on around us. We are a product of the stress, of the crises, of all the challenges that we're experiencing. And we say, well, I can't help but react. I can't help but get depressed. But here we see actually a psychiatrist who went through a World War II concentration camp. And he said, you know what? We don't have to just be a product of our environment. We don't have to be a product of the stress that is pressing around us. We don't have to react. We have a choice between stimulus and response. So what is our choice? You know, talk is cheap. What we need now is action. And we need that action to be focused especially on holistic intervention, the type of intervention that brings the results that we're seeing this evening, results like Pam has had, results like Tanner, and results like Joe. Do you think it's coincidental that we were already planning on opening a pilot wellness center earlier this year before the pandemic even hit? Do you think that's coincidental? I don't think so. I see a divine hand guiding in all of this. And now I'm so excited that you saw the video, right? Where construction is underway, and we're slated to actually finish construction by the end of this month. This is going to be a wonderful place where we can provide mental health services that are so comprehensive that not only will they address mental health, but they're actually going to boost our immune system and help us even to fight infections and stay healthy, both mentally and physically, throughout the duration of these difficult winter months. Now, this pilot center will provide an important proof of concept for realizing the vision for an expanded healing center. The purpose of the expanded healing center, which is a larger campus, is to address the root causes of mental health problems and to create an atmosphere of connection and support in an increasingly fragmented and toxic world. The center that we have envisioned will give people the opportunity not just to understand the principles of good mental health. You know, it's good to talk and explain these principles, right? But what's even more powerful than understanding something? Experiencing it. And that's really what our goal is with the new center that we're developing. We want them not to just hear about exercise, but have the opportunity to exercise and to exercise with them and have a designated gym for exercise. We want them not to just hear about doing hydrotherapy and water therapy at home, but we want to do it with them, especially because, you know, a lot of people have a hard time doing that hot and cold on their own. They need a little external support with that. We want to give people understanding not just that massage is good, but you can experience the massage. And we want people to not only understand about good nutrition, but taste and see that it is truly good, that you don't have to be afraid of a whole food, plant-based meal, but it actually gives you, not only makes your body and your brain happy and healthy, but also your taste buds too. And then we want to have a garden for people to actually be doing some gardening therapy. And music. How many of you like music? Yeah, some music therapy as well. And finally, it will also be a training center for other mental health professionals, because our vision does not just end here in Auburn. We want these same principles of mental health. The mental health gospel is what I like to call it, the good news about mental health, to spread across America to the furthest reaches of brokenness. Are you seeing a lot of brokenness out there? Are you seeing a lot of problems? The beautiful thing is, we have solutions. Do you think this is possible? Well, the good news is that there are a lot of opportunities that are presenting themselves even now. Things are happening. The land adjacent to our clinic, which is about 12 acres, has become available, and we recently signed a purchase agreement with our landlord, Don Whitaker. He has given us a very generous terms because he believes in what we're doing. He's seen many of the results. We have engaged with an experienced developer, Jim Esway from Crossroad Ventures Group. And this week, just this week, we officially engaged in an architect and civil engineer for the project of the expanded holistic mental health campus. It's exciting. And we feel a strong urgency, like never before, to press forward. The end of January, we plan to meet with Placer County in a pre-development meeting to finalize our development plans. In the meantime, we are working diligently to secure financing. We estimate a total cost of around $6 million for the project, and we need your help to get there. But we are moving forward, and I continue to tell God, as long as you keep opening the doors, we're going to keep going forward. And it's beautiful. One step at a time, he has provided. And I know he will continue to provide, because this is not our work. This is not my work, but this is his work. To touch the wounded heart, to minister to the bleeding soul, to uplift those that are in darkness, to be a light. This is the work that we have been called to. And remember, the real reason we are doing all of this is because of people. Pamela, Tanner, and Joe are examples of the power that these mental health principles can have in bringing true healing. We want a place of healing and connection that is accessible to all those in need. All of those in need. Not just those that can pay. All of those who need treatment and want treatment. Remember those suicide stats that I was talking about? The ones where people are having all these suicidal thoughts? You know, mental health problems are truly a killer. But we have the opportunity to do something about it. Will you join me? The time is now.
Get to do the fun part of the program, the prize drawing. So we're going to have prizes both for you who are here in person and for those that registered for our live streaming. And the prizes for the live streaming will be sent to you in the mail. So here we go, our first prize. I think I have a clicker here. Is from the Foodie Bar Way Cookbook. Wish that you had a plan when it comes to making delicious food for yourself and your family. The Foodie Bar Way provides the perfect balance of flexibility and structure to eliminate the stress of planning a meal to satisfy everyone and keep the combination flavors fresh. This is a plant-based cookbook. It's written by Timmerie Hagenberger, who is a local, grew up in Auburn, registered dietitian. She has taught some of our community workshops. And so we have her cookbook.
This is the in-person, right?
Yes.
So the prize goes to A16. And
So if you're in seat A16, please stand up. And one of these lovely ladies will bring you your prize.
A16, do we have the person?
A16.
We have so many online participants.
Yeah, so our online participant
goes to Dieter Stenger.
Dieter. We will be sending you your cookbook in the mail.
All right, and now we have connection cards. And why connection cards? Connection happens when we share ourselves with others, and especially when we don't know someone. How do we get started with the right questions and thought-provoking conversations? So for that, we have connection cards by Stacy Bartley. She's one of our speakers in the webinars and also our online course. So these are connection cards to the rescue for those that want to initiate and stay connected. The price for that goes to
H22. Are you in seat H22?
Please raise your hand.
Stand up. H22. It's kind of dark. We can't see you.
Going once.
H22. Can you stand up?
Going twice.
Is nobody in H22? Is it empty? Okay, we'll draw another one.
Another one.
J9.
Going once.
J9.
Yay, we got a winner.
We have a winner. Oh, I guess I'm supposed to draw it.
For the online participants.
For the online, we have Heidi Duffield. Heidi will be sending you your connection cards.
Yay.
Our next gift is a $50 gift voucher from Beautiful Minds Wellness. This is an opportunity for positive personal growth. You can use this gift voucher towards the purchase of any of our online mental health courses or our in-person workshops. And these courses will help you move from survive to thrive.
And the in-person winner is
drumroll,
B12. Do we have the person in B12? Please stand up.
B12.
Yay, Jenny. Congratulations. Thank you. Hope to see you soon there. She's the one that leads our walking groups in the mornings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'm inviting you all to be there at 8:30. 8 o'clock. 8, okay. 8 o'clock, thank you. And the
online person,
that would go to
also a gift certificate to Beautiful Minds Wellness online courses.
Donna Alexia. Donna Alexia, we'll send you your gift certificate online. All right, and then the other prize we have is an $150 gift certificate from the Vibrance Medical Spa, and I don't know if you've been to this spa, it's actually located in Auburn in a beautiful location, and they have personalized and customized treatments that are safe and effective. So we're going to give a facial certificate for you to come here, and who will get it in person? Shama?
J27.
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 The lucky one. Yay.
Way over there.
Congratulations. Thank you. And online, who will get it? Actually, we do have a different price. Sorry for that, because online not necessarily lives here, right? So for that, we have a luxury organic pillow by Sage Sleep Organics, and that has the value of $150, and it's actually free of toxins, organic, hypoallergenic, and all the good stuff. So we will send this to, who would be the winner online?
This is also a local woman-owned business here in the area. And online, Berquin Feast.
Oh, look at that. Fantastic. And if you want to get one of these, you can also find it in Vibrance Medical Spa. Giving a little...
I got to keep these in order so we send them the right price.
Yeah. All right, so that's
Thank
it.
you for
Thank you.
coming out, and we are going to continue with the show.
Good evening. Public speaking is a leading cause of anxiety, often greater than death, or even spiders. You may think that because I am here publicly speaking, that I do not have this anxiety, but I do. Right now, my heart is pounding, my hands are shaking, and my voice is trembling. Why would I choose to do something that made me feel so anxious? I choose to be here tonight because I can. Because in my lifelong journey dealing with anxiety, I have learned that I can survive it and live a good life despite it. I am proud of my progress, and I hope that my story may help others who are also struggling along their own paths toward mental health and well-being. My story begins with my mom, who is the most extroverted person I've ever met. I, on the other hand, am very introverted. I was her first child, and she didn't have any positive role models for good parenting. She thought my introversion meant there was something wrong with me. She believed that I would be happier if I were extroverted, so she put a lot of effort into trying to teach me how. Unfortunately, she only succeeded in making me feel insecure, inadequate, and incapable. I got the message that my feelings were inappropriate and my instincts were unreliable. I grew up mistrusting myself and feeling like a disappointment. It's no wonder that I struggled with anxiety from a very early age. My earliest manifestation of anxiety was pulling out my eyelashes. What I know now is that hair pulling is a disorder called trichotillomania, which belongs to a group of behaviors known as body-focused repetitive behaviors, or BFRBs, which are self-grooming behaviors in which people pull, pick, scrape, or bite their hair, skin, or nails, resulting in damage to the body. Hair pulling is considered to be on the obsessive-compulsive spectrum, and it affects 3 to 4% of the population at large, according to the Trichotillomania Learning Center Foundation for BFRBs. My first memory of pulling was when I was 7 years old, although I probably had been doing it for much longer. I hid it for years, feeling embarrassed and ashamed. It spread from eyelashes to eyebrows to head hair. I covered my thin spots under headbands and hats. I became even less comfortable socializing. Eventually, I told my mom. Trying to be supportive, she took me to see my doctor. This was in the 80s, and not much was known about trichotillomania. All my doctor said was, "You'd better stop or you'll get bald spots." This only increased my anxiety and insecurity. I continued to pull and to hide it and myself from other people. When I was 15, my dad got sick. By the time they discovered the brain tumor, it was too large for surgery. They diagnosed him with cancer and gave him 6 months to live. I was devastated. As a fellow introvert, I always felt understood and accepted by him. When he was diagnosed, I pushed him away, angry with him for dying, for leaving me. My mom, wanting to help, encouraged me to start therapy. In my therapist, I found someone to listen to me and support me without the judgment or criticism I often felt from my mom. I learned a lot about myself. By the time my dad died 2 years later, I was ready to say goodbye. For as long as I can remember, I struggled with black moods. They got worse during the time my dad was sick. I was never suicidal and I never became incapacitated, but I experienced what I called the black spiral. It started with feeling critical of myself, and this feeling spread until I could only see the negative side of everything I saw. Anything I tried to do to avoid or short-circuit this spiral failed, and every failure made me feel worse until there was nothing left but blackness. I wrote this poem to try to describe the experience. Frustration wells, irritation intrudes insidiously into my sense of well-being. The circle of myself is besieged by doubt, discontent, criticism. Filaments growing like fungus, invading in ever-increasing self-destructive cycles, until the circle is obliterated. Solutions are demanded, fulfillment is required, meaning is sought, the noose tightens. So constant becomes this concentration, this focus upon flaw, failure, future. So intense becomes this inward spiral of self-hatred and hopelessness that the energy required to sustain it is simply not available. The cycle begins to slow, to lose some of its urgency, to become imperceptibly less important. The skewed perception which magnified minor conflict into major crisis begins to fade, allowing the irregularities and idiosyncrasies of myself to recede once again, until the circle, miraculously, reappears. During college, I joined a therapy group for people with obsessive-compulsive disorders, including hair pulling. The recommended treatment was antidepressants and behavioral therapy. So I started Prozac, and my life was utterly transformed. On Prozac, the black spiral disappeared. It felt like I had been carrying around a huge weight my entire life, a weight that dragged me down and exhausted me, but that I could not even see, let alone put down. Suddenly, miraculously, I was free of it. Just knowing that this was possible was the most liberating, joyful experience I'd ever had. However, when I went home that summer, I stopped taking the medication and the black moods returned. Despite having such a positive experience with Prozac, I struggled with the idea that I should be able to do without medication, that needing it meant there really was something wrong with me. Every time I went off, I relapsed, and the decision to go back on never got any easier. Eventually, I settled on a very low dose of Zoloft and was stable for a while, until I decided to get pregnant. I did everything right. I went off my meds, I didn't smoke or drink, I took prenatal vitamins. I got pregnant easily, carried to term, and had an uncomplicated birth. Our son was born and declared healthy on October 11th, 1998. Everything was perfect, until we took him for his first well-baby checkup. The pediatrician diagnosed him with a heart defect and admitted him directly to the neonatal intensive care unit. Thus began my journey into pediatric cardiology, which would last in its most intensive form for 4 years. During that journey, I continued my personal quest for mental health with the help of some wonderful professionals who assisted me as part of helping my son. I continued my on-again, off-again pattern with medication, seeing a therapist and feeling conflicted about whether it was okay to just decide to stay on the meds. Eventually, we had another baby, and this time I did stay on my meds. Luckily, there were no surprises, except that I was tired of mood swings and feeling bad about myself, and I told my doctor I didn't ever want to go off meds again. And so I didn't. The medication changed once or twice, but I stayed on antidepressants for 15 straight years. I believed I would be on them forever, and that was okay with me. Even my husband said he liked me better on meds than off them. When my children were little, I did an internet search on hair pulling, which is how I discovered the Trichotillomania Learning Center Foundation. On their site was a list of therapists trained in how to treat hair pulling, and I called the one closest to me. She ran a weekly group, which I joined, of 8 hair pulling women. At my first session, I told them that I had already done a lot of work on myself, but was always interested in learning more so that I could fix my flaws. In response, one of the women said to me, "Why do you think you need to be fixed?" It had never occurred to me to ask this question, to entertain the possibility that I might not be broken. This was the most important lesson I had ever learned. Over several years in this group, I also learned that I was not alone and that recovery from hair pulling was possible. Once my kids were in school, I also went back to school and became a registered nurse. I ended up working at the dialysis clinic in Grass Valley. At one point, a coworker said to me, I didn't seem to have any mental health issues. I laughed and told him that that was because I was well medicated, by which I meant that I was well because I was medicated. However, the medication I was on was a very high dose of Wellbutrin, and I started having some of its known side effects, such as heart palpitations and blurry vision. My thyroid levels were also low, and increasing my thyroid medication made the symptoms worse. I decided to get off the Wellbutrin and onto something with fewer side effects. It seemed wise to have professional oversight in this process of weaning off one medication and choosing another, so I came to Beautiful Minds. At my first appointment, Robert Nordman told me about a new treatment called nutrient therapy, which is designed to support brain metabolism by correcting the imbalances which both cause and are caused by mental health problems. Based on blood and urine tests, I would receive an individualized regimen of various supplements which would balance my biochemistry enough to reduce or eliminate the need for prescription medication. After reading the book, I decided it was worth a try. While the nutrient therapy was taking effect, we started decreasing the dose of the Wellbutrin. It was not always smooth, and it took most of a year, but the side effects from the Wellbutrin disappeared, and my mood remained stable. The black spiral did not return. When I was down to the lowest dose of Wellbutrin, I came to an appointment expecting to stop it and start another medication. Instead, Robert asked me if I would consider being off medication for a while. That was August of 2018. I have been off prescription antidepressants ever since. I was so anxious, afraid that the stability I had enjoyed for so long wouldn't last. I started therapy again to keep from slipping. Robert streamlined the nutrient regimen, but I still take a handful of supplements 3 times a day. I insisted on continuing to see my therapist through the second winter without meds, even though she said I didn't need it. I haven't seen her in 6 months. I know I may need therapy again, and I may need medication again. I am emotionally battered, scarred, and at times fragile. But I am also more whole, more free, more authentic than I was. I still pull my hair, but generally not to the point that it is noticeable. More importantly, not to the point that I feel ashamed of myself. That's really the most wonderful outcome of this entire journey. I no longer feel like there is anything wrong with me. I am not broken. I do not need to be fixed. I am not perfect. I have flaws and room for improvement. But I am lovable and capable of love, just like all of us.
Good evening. It's good to see each one of you here tonight. My name is Kevin Longo, and I am a board member with Beautiful Minds Wellness. I first became involved with Dr. Binus about 10 years ago when one of our 4 children needed to have some services. We'd already been seeing another psychiatrist in the area for a couple of our children's needs. And we're making a transition at that point when Dr. Binus came to the community. So that was when we first really became acquainted with him. Over the years, we've, through church and other social occasions, have been in touch with Dr. Binus. And what we found was that I've been in healthcare myself for sort of a finance background, government regulations and privacy with the company I'm with now. Through my background and experience in healthcare, I did end up working with a lifestyle program in Washington State for a couple of years where we saw literally miracles take place in people's lives with amazing transformation for many of the very serious risks of heart disease, diabetes, and other kinds of illnesses and diseases that respond well to lifestyle medicine. And so when I heard about what Dr. Binus was doing with this vision of being able to build a program here in the Auburn area to serve individuals that are struggling with behavioral health issues, and having lived through an experience like that with a couple of our children in the early years, he at one point asked if I would be willing to help and be a part of the board team. And so after giving it some consideration, I thought, I'd really love to see something like this in Auburn where individuals can benefit from this vision of a balance of understanding when you need to have meds and how to be able to minimize the use of meds, or maybe eventually be off of meds altogether, as we've heard here in these stories. So that's been my background experience. You know, it's a very amazing vision for this program and project that is planned for the Auburn community and hopefully for communities beyond here. But tonight, I would like to just introduce Day. He is working with our Beautiful Minds Wellness in providing helping with our fundraising and promotional and communicating with individuals that would be interested in participating in making this vision a reality for Auburn. So I'd like to introduce you today and the video message that you will see here.
Good evening. We want to thank you for joining us, whether you're here at the theater tonight or you're watching the live stream, or even if you happen to catch the program afterwards. You've just heard some amazing stories. Some of you can relate with these stories, maybe not directly, but in some shape or form you've had to deal with mental health challenges, perhaps personally, or maybe you have a loved one who's had to fight through some challenges. I myself was not able to relate with somebody going through discouragement or depression because I have an optimistic view of life, so it was hard for me to kind of understand what they were going through. That is until depression hit me. Not too long ago, I experienced a major life crisis, and as a result, I went into a deep depression, and I was not motivated to do anything. Felt like maybe it'd be better if I were gone. If it wasn't for a couple of caring professors at my university who took the time to go through therapy with me, one of them is a licensed therapist, I honestly don't know if I would have made it through that. I joined the Beautiful Minds team earlier this year, right before COVID-19 hit, and since I've been here, I've noticed that level of care that the professors had for me and the people who work at Beautiful Minds. One thing I've heard over and over from the stories of people who pass through here is the sentence, "I feel like the people at Beautiful Minds truly care about me." And that's what Beautiful Minds is all about. We don't just care to help people get out of their mental health challenges. We care for the person themselves. We understand that optimal mental health is gained through addressing the different facets of life, not just mentally, but nutritionally, physically, socially, and spiritually as well. Every human being is precious and deserves the chance to live a life of joy. With everything happening around the world, this type of support is needed now more than ever. Our dream is to have many more stories like the ones you've heard. Having our own wellness center will give us the opportunity to reach hundreds or even thousands more. You can be a part of making this dream a reality. By simply being here, you're already making a difference. If you know someone who can benefit from our services, send them our way. Or you can partner up with us through financial contributions. If you believe in what we believe, I invite you to consider the opportunity to donate. You may do so at our website at beautifulmindswellness.org/donate. Or if you're so inclined, you can also take the envelope that was provided with your program and donate today. You can drop off the envelope on the way out. There's some baskets for you. And if you're a philanthropist and are extremely passionate about mental wellness, I ask you to consider becoming a regular donor. I would be happy to discuss different opportunities with you. Simply send me an email at da@beautifulmindswellness.org, and I'd be happy to connect with you. My name is Day. Please enjoy the rest of the program. It means a whole lot to us that you're here, helping us give hope to more beautiful minds.
Good evening. I'm Alessandra Sorace, and it has been such a privilege for us to hear your inspiring stories of things that have been lifelong journeys. At times, they've been smaller, and at times they've been a storm. But throughout every single one of these stories, you have shared with us, the rest of the audience, that no matter what, at the deepest part of your storm, in the hardest time of your crisis, you never walked truly alone. When you walk through the storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with
Okay, here we go. Have you been inspired this evening? I know I have. Yes, let's give a big round of applause. What a blessing. Just to hear all these amazing stories, to hear the wonderful music. You know, I just love music. It's such a neglected part of mental health. Thank you so much, Alessandra, for that beautiful song. Really appreciate that. Well, let's see here. I had my notes. This is why I usually do handwritten notes, because I think I might have accidentally deleted it. Yeah, here it is. In the recently deleted folder. What do you know? All right. Otherwise, it would have been much more fun to practice some mental health techniques myself to see if I could calm myself while I'm trying to remember what I was supposed to say here. No, it really has been wonderful to be here this evening. You know, many of us are eagerly waiting the results of the presidential election, right? While this is important and will impact our lives, for one, I'm glad that we had a break from thinking about it for a few minutes. I don't know about you. But you know, there's something that's even more important than the results of the presidential election. Something even more important that will impact our lives and our world, actually. And you know what that is? It's regardless of who is elected, what's more important is how we relate to one another. And it all starts with our mental health. Because how I relate to you and how you relate to me is a product of our emotional intelligence, which is really a product of our mental health. Are we willing, regardless if our skin is black or white, regardless if our politics are red or blue, to learn how to live loving kindness, to build bridges instead of walls, to clasp hands instead of raising fists? That's really what this is all about, what we're doing tonight. We're seeking to reconnect, to mend that which is broken. We want to seek first to understand and then be understood. We want to seek to serve rather than to be served. With this attitude and by living these principles, we can and we will be a light in the darkness, a beacon of hope to all those who desire peace, joy, and true connection. And we can have all this as we remember that we never walk alone, that we have one another. I have you and you have me, that we're brothers and sisters. We're all one blood around this great world that we've been given. And even more importantly, we have a loving God who cares for us and has promised never to leave us nor forsake us. In an increasingly lonely world, like Alessandra just sang, we can be assured that we will never walk alone. Now's our opportunity to share that amazing truth. Not just to share it with words, but to live it by being the hands that clasp warmly your neighbor, even if you maybe disagree. By being the arms that reach and give a hug when appropriate and physical distancing is not required. To be the kind words that help still the irritated and aggravated spirit. We have been called for a specific and special purpose. We have a mission. And it all starts with one. It all starts with you. It all starts with me. What an opportunity we have. And as we do our part, there can be a ripple effect that starts maybe just here in a small little corner of Auburn a small little corner of America, and spreads across the globe. Will you join me in this great work? It's not a work that weighs us down or makes us tired. It's a work that brings a buoyancy and a joy that nothing else can. I want to invite you to stand with me this evening as we close with a word of prayer. Our Father, I thank you so much for this evening that we've been able to spend together. I thank you that because of you, we never need to walk alone. I thank you for each person here and for each story represented. We've heard 3 beautiful stories. We all have a story, and you are active in those stories. And we ask that you would help us to see how we can walk with you so that we can all receive the healing that you want to bring into our lives, and not just receive that healing and hang on to it, but then to share with others. We long to see light spreading across this globe, and we ask that you would allow what we're doing here to be that beacon of hope in the darkness, and to point people to these beautiful principles that you've given us. We pray all this in your name. Amen. Thank you again for joining us this evening. It has truly been a blessing. May God bless you all.
Thank you for coming out this evening. We hope that you enjoyed the program. We ask that you would please stay in your seats. As part of the COVID protocol, we actually are going to be dismissing you by rows. So please just sit tight for a minute. It won't take long. Thank you.